Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and today we're going to go back into the 80s and check out the case of the boys on the tracks in Arkansas. Two boys that got run over by a train, and the case has never been solved. No, they did not walk onto the tracks drunkenly and get hit by a train. That is what makes this case so fascinating. And apparently, over time, this case has got a lot of theories, interesting theories. Some of them people will call conspiracy theories, but then again, those conspiracies could be accurate. So I don't know where you think I'm going to end up coming down on this case, but to hang in here and you'll find out. And if you're new to the channel, by the way, do consider joining these lovely people in the chat room. Whoa, that's not what I meant to put up. Okay, buy my books. I'll throw that in there. Why not? Okay. Please join Patreon. The link is below. It's $5 a month. It supports its educational channel. You can come to 2 lives a week, a case show like this on the weekend, and a hangout during the week. And it's really a nice community because I've gotten to know a lot of people in my community, and I really like them. And this is why I do live shows, because doing videos is very boring and lonely. So I liked having the interaction with people who are interested in criminal profiling and crime scene analysis and have a good sense of humor, because if they wouldn't come to my channel because they wouldn't like me. Anyway, if you don't want to do that, please do subscribe to the channel. All of my live shows become public once the Patreon live show is over. So there's nothing hidden. I do want people to be able to learn. So if you just subscribe to the channel and fight AI, because AI is killing all of us who have real shows. So I need every subscriber I can get. Although these days, the algorithm isn't showing me to new people. So how do you get new subscribers? I don't even know if you're going to see this new subscriber. Anyway, that's it. Okay, let's get to the show. That's my spiel. All righty then. Okay. Oh, wrong show. Wait a minute, I hit the wrong button. That was last week. Do you want to see this great show from? I just actually made this public today. This is have you seen Devontae Morgan? He went missing in California a number of years ago. Check that out. I don't edit, as you can see. Okay, let me go to where I'm supposed to be. They both had a very similar middle section, which is why I clicked the wrong one. At least that's my excuse. All right. These are the boys. These are the tracks. This is the train, or a train like the train that hit them. Yeah, there's a joke here. If you come to my shows enough, my patrons have decided every time I put up a wrong photo, they're going to take a shot of something, so that I'll have a lot of drunk patrons. But yes, that's the beginning of my day. I mean, I've screwed up already. So anyway, I'm glad you're all here. Okay, let's get to what this whole story is about. All right, I'm going to read you, because I use Wikipedia just for the sake of having something easy to deal with, so that you understand this. If you've never heard of this case before, I want you to understand at least the basics. And I'm going to get into all the issues. All right. Under Wikipedia, we're talking about the killing of Don Henry and Kevin Ives, these two boys here. Around 4:30 a.m. on August 23rd, 1987, 16-year-old Don Henry and 17-year-old Kevin Ives were hit by a Union Pacific freight train in the town of Alexander, Arkansas. Okay, Alexander, Arkansas is, it's a small town. I don't know if I have a picture of it. Let's see if this is the wrong picture. Okay, this is a picture from Google Maps or Apple Maps. It's a small town. You can see the train tracks there. And the train tracks, actually, if you look at it from Google Earth during the spring or summer, and this was summer, the train tracks going through the area look like this. And that's kind of important, because the area you see that says Crooked Creek, there is actually a trestle there. This Crooked Creek, and it is crooked as crap. Let me tell you. I mean, I looked at the map, and that thing winds everywhere in all directions. It's crazy. Actually, a very, very crooked creek, which is why it got its name. But it goes under the tracks there. And you'll see the tracks are basically with trees on both sides for the most part. Here is where the trestle goes over the tracks. So they're found on these tracks. Well, they were hit by the train on these tracks. So They were lying on the tracks. And this is important. The whole issue here is when you first hear about boys being hit by a train, you think they were drunk and were trying to like race across the tracks and didn't make it, because that's often what happens. People are not laying on the tracks, they're running across the tracks and they get hit. People who are laying on the tracks, for the most part, if they're going to lay there, which is they're trying to commit suicide because they're just, okay, by the time the train sees them, almost never can the train stop in time. So that train is going to run them over. I can think of better ways to off myself, but it is a way that is used. So in this case, the boys were not standing up when the train conductor saw them. He saw them lying down in the track, actually with a bit of a green tarp covering part of their bodies, but he could see the upper part of their bodies. And so he knew there were two boys laying on the tracks, and he tried to stop the train. And of course, didn't quite work out. So the locomotive engineer engaged the brakes while blowing the horn, but the train could not stop and roll over the boys. Now, the other interesting thing is he blew the horn, as you would when you see people laying in your tracks. You're like, beep. Well, they don't beep. Horn. I can't do a horn sound. If you're laying in those tracks for any other reason than being either dead or completely unconscious or suicidal, you would probably pitch yourself off the tracks when you heard the sound of the train coming. First, you'd hear the rumbling of the train. You'd know the train is coming. Then you hear the sound of the guy like blaring the horn. You would get off the tracks. These boys didn't move. They just laid there. And so he ran over. So members of the locomotive crew stated that the bodies were partly covered by a tarpaulin, which we'll just call the green tarp, and were motionless. The deaths were initially ruled an accident, but further investigation, conflicting evidence led a grand jury to rule the deaths probable homicide. Now, eventually they just said it was a homicide. There's no way this was anything but a homicide. Popular speculation on facts of the case has produced media coverage and allegations of wrongdoing by several government agencies, and has led to a lot of speculation about their deaths were connected to a drug drops, drug cartels in the area, with a lot of corrupt people who are involved in drug trafficking. And also then it connects to Barry Seal, who was a drug trafficker, and also to President Clinton, who was at the time, Bill Clinton was the governor. So it goes on and on and on and on. So that's the basics of what happened to them. All right, the poor engineer, yeah, absolutely. They were traumatized for sure. I mean, it's nothing like running over people. Only partially covered. Mincy, I'm glad you said that. Now, I always remind people, I'm not a storyteller. You can get that elsewhere. I'm going to show you elsewhere where you can get it. My point is to look at evidence. Yes, they were partially covered. And this is, to me, is very interesting. Why were they partially covered? Why not fully covered? And the mother of one of the boys, let me see if I can find her comment here. This is Linda Ives, the mother of Kevin Ives, the 17-year-old. She, by the way, when everything went south on this, and the medical examiner said that, I'll get into the medical examiner, the guy's a lunatic. Anyway, he basically said the boy smoked a lot of weed and lay down on the tracks and fell asleep. Sure. And Linda Ives didn't go for that terribly much. So she fought and fought and fought and fought. And she managed to finally get the grand jury and all that. So kudos to her about, how much she worked on that. Now, I want to point out, okay, I can't see. Oh, shoot. Okay, I'm going to probably click on the wrong thing here. I want to find the thing. No, that's not it. Must be this. No, that's not it. Dang it all. See, I can't find them because the things are so darn small. Okay, I'm looking for it right now. Oh, here we go. Okay. So Linda says she thought the killers laying the boys on the tracks and covering them with that tarp, hoping that the crew of an oncoming train would not notice them. So what she's saying is she thought, and it's kind of reasonable, so Linda's thinking, and good thinking, that maybe what they did was to put the boys' bodies on the track, but they didn't want the train to be able to stop in time. They wanted the killers wanted the train to run over the bodies. So what they did was try to put a tarp over it. So when the train's coming down the track, they just think it was maybe just a piece of trash in the track, just a tarp. but it wasn't covering their whole body. So that theory kind of falls apart, because if you wanted them to be covered, you make sure they were damn well covered. You wouldn't have the tarp just lying on the half of their body, so the other two, the upper parts of the bodies were totally visible. And on top of that, so the tarp disappeared at the time when they went to look after they were looking for the body, what had happened. Police showed up and all that. The tarp wasn't on the track. The tarp had blown away. It wasn't even tucked in. So I disagree that the tarp was not put on the bodies to cover it so that the train wouldn't run over it. So keep this in mind when we're looking at the actual details of the crime and who might have committed the crime. So, but I understand the mother thinking that could be possible. They do look younger than 17. Well, only because I think in those days, these days people know how to do all this fancy, hairstyles, and they're trying to look older than they are. But I look at my picture back when I was 17, and I probably look 15. It's just the way people were when people were normal and didn't use makeup and hairstyling and all that crap. That is true. Christoph says the forensic team had to search a huge area for body parts. Very true. And then the train had backed up. Oh, it was a horror show. It was really, really bad. And the crime scene was not handled well, which is one of the issues here. I do not have a clue. Good question, though. That really bugs me, because there is, it goes like this. So when the police came, the train conductor, and I guess his let's see if I can find this part where it doesn't say it on here, but so there were at least two people who saw the tarp, and they said to the police officer at the scene, "Hey, there was a tarp lying on top of them, this green tarp, but that wasn't there at the time." So I forgot what he was. He was an officer, but he's deputy. I think he was a deputy. I'm not going to bother with all the names of all the police officers and stuff, because it's really not important. That will be covered elsewhere, and I'll show you in just a minute. But the deputy said, "Well, I don't see any tarp." So no, you must be just an illusion. It's dark. It's dark. You're racing. The train is racing. You see something on the tracks. You just imagine there was something on them. But supposedly the same guy, the conductor, went and with his flashlight and looked down remember that place, the trestle place. He supposedly put his flashlight down there and saw the green tarp down there. And he claimed he told the police about it, and they didn't give a crap. Well, I don't know what happened to the green tarp. Nobody knows what happened to the green tarp. It was never collected. It was never analyzed. Did it exist? Who knows? I do think it existed, but it wasn't collected. So I don't know. It's a small tarp, a big tarp, but one has to wonder why there was a tarp to begin with. Okay, so we're going to get into that when we go to analyze the crime scene. Let's keep in mind, why was there a tarp at all? Why was it on the bodies? Those two things, keep that in mind. So, all right, so the case of the missing green tarp. Sounds like an Agatha Christie book. Okay, so I want to point out now where I got my information from and where you can get other information from. All right, there is a book written on this case. It's very, very well known. This book is the book on the case is by Mara Leverett. The boys on the tracks. That's where the whole name comes from. And Mara Leverett, this is the woman. She's a journalist, and it is a very long book, very detailed. Goes through all of the crime. It goes through everybody who's involved in the town. It goes through all the theories, the drug connections. All the way to Bill Clinton. It's a lot. It's a lot. But she did a tremendous amount of investigative work to write it. Did I have trouble reading all of it? Yes, it's a slog. But only because I'm more interested in the crime scene than I am in 200 more pages of theory about drug cartels. But I'm not disinterested either. And those who are very interested find her book extremely important and well written. So I do not just tell people don't read that book. Some books I say don't read that book, but that it's a good book. All right, then you can go to YouTube and you will find these. Okay, you got Stephanie Harlow. She did 4 parts of this series, each one over an hour long. So it's 4 hours worth of, basically she's using a lot of the book, the information from the Boys on the Track books, the book. And so if you study that book, you can put together a very long series, which she did. And mostly I had trouble not looking at her boobs, and I'm not gay, but hey, I mean, it just, she wears such low cut stuff sometimes. It's hard to look at her face and not her boobs. Just saying. Just saying. Nice boobs, but hey, maybe a little more covered up so I can pay attention to what you're saying. Then there's another one. This is True Crime Garage. True Crime Garage kind of goes off the rails sometimes, or off the tracks. And they did a 4-part series, also an hour each. And the first one got a lot of people watching it. And then by the time 2, 3, and 4 came along, pretty much there were no comments. So I'm guessing people gave up. Then there's this one. This is considered the Bible of murder on the tracks. I mean, of the Boys on the Tracks theories, the story of Kevin Ives and Don Henry. It's called Murder on the Tracks, Part 1. There are, I believe, 4 parts, 3 or 4 parts. I don't know if it's 3 or 4. I can't remember. This has so much detail, so many photos, so many. I mean, this is actually, if you're going to watch something, in my opinion, this would be the thing to watch. I did recommend in the link below, I did recommend a short 10-minute one, which is, it's really good. It gives you basic flavor of it without all the long and exhaustive investigation. So those are places you can go to get all the details about all the connections to drug cartels. I'll talk about the drug cartels in a minute, because the question is, were the boys killed because they ran into drug cartel activity? And so that's a big part of the whole issue here. I agree with the press, and she's got a nice pair. I'm not saying she doesn't. Oh, well, if you check out this one, I swear to God, that actually the shot for the thumbnail is not as noticeable as when you're watching the show. I'm just like, boob lady clothes are distracting, and she knows it. I think she's an attractive woman. She likes to present herself as attractive. You know, I don't fault her for that. You know, if you're good looking and you're younger than me, and you got boobs that are worth looking at, I get it. But it's just a little. I found it distracting. That's all I can say. I found it distracting, but I didn't watch much of it, the show, not because she did a bad job, but because it was basically a rendition of the book. She's using all that information, giving her opinions, which are fine. But again, I'm not a storyteller. I can't do 4 hours watching that. So, tassels, hi. What a rabbit hole. What a rabbit hole. How are you going to do this in one episode? And I'll tell you what right now, how I'm going to do that. Because I'm not going down the rabbit hole. And you might ask me, why am I not going down the rabbit hole? Okay, because, well, let me get into it. So anyway, what happens is I have to go through a little bit more of the story, and then you're going to see the drug connection issues and how far do the drug connections go, so that how much corruption is there? I'll say this, there was corruption. There was drug dealing. There was a whole bunch of stuff here that shouldn't have been going on, and with people who in power. So there is a level of not so much a conspiracy, but corruption that is actually there. However, I do think what happens is people start stringing things together that don't need to be strung together, and a lot of people do that because it's fascinating and because they can, and it makes a good book or a good show. But the question is it realistic? And so that's what I'll get to. So there's a little bit more into this story here. All right. So what happens is after the boys get run over on the tracks, let's see if I got a couple pictures of the boys here. There's just a couple pictures of Don Henry and Kevin Ives, just a couple different shots of what they look like. They're teenagers. All right. Now, this is what happened essentially. At 6, wow, shoot, I can't even read because my thing's in the way. Hold on a second. 6 hours earlier, about 4 a.m., in a mobile home park adjoining the tracks about a mile from the train. Wait, I don't even understand what that says. I don't understand why I kept that one. Never mind. Okay. At 4 a.m. is when they get run approximately. And they had 4:30 a.m. But here's what happened. Somewhere around midnight, the boys had been out. So Kevin asked his mom, this is Kevin's mom, he said, hey, I want to go hang out at Don's with Don tonight. I want to stay overnight at Don's. Now, they were buddies. Both parents had good jobs. I think the Ives had more money and were involved actually in the railroad industry. And the other boy, Don, his father had electrical company or something, but he lived in more of a trailer home. All right, so maybe a little bit less income. But anyway, the boys went to the same high school. They became buddies in the last 6 months. So Kevin said, hey, can I go hang out with Don tonight? And the mother's like, She wasn't overly thrilled, but she's like, oh, okay, go ahead. So Kevin went to Don's, and the story is that Kevin and Don went and hung with some teenagers in town, which you do, especially in small towns. They hung out with some teenagers, supposedly smoked a little weed. All right, and if this is the correct one, there we go. So they were supposedly, the guy here, this is a talent, who didn't appear to have much talent. Anyway, he was I think that was he was the one at the scene to begin with, I believe. Anyway, the police officer at the scene, and he was the one that thought that the tarp was not interesting. And he said that, well, on the night they died, they had made a stop to buy a $10 bag of marijuana. Now, $10 bag of marijuana is not, well, it's not huge. It's not, it's like, okay, teenager could do that. I get it. My teenager better not do that. Well, mine grew up and did not do that. But it's not an unusual thing. So anyway, he got $10 bag of marijuana, they went and smoked with some friends. They found actually the bag in his pocket. So they didn't smoke that much. So they did that. And then they went back to Don's house, and supposedly Kevin stayed outside while Don went in and said, hey, Dad, we want to go spotlight hunting. Now, what that means is one of them takes a big spotlight and the other one takes a gun, and you go out in this, very woodsy place, and you go hunting for supposedly deer for the most part, and you shine the light and the deer freezes, and then the other person shoots the deer. It's illegal. Okay, it's illegal. And supposedly really wasn't deer season anyway, on top of that. So one of the questions that one must ask, which they don't seem to ask, which I find interesting, nobody seems to ask this, did they really go spotlight hunting? Or was that an excuse to go out when they had to be home at 12 o'clock when he was supposed, no, that's like, and hey, we're home, but can we go do this? And since they were big hunters, Dad says, sure, go ahead. Did they really go hunting, or was that an excuse to go back out in the night to go do something? So we have to keep this in mind for whether they went hunting and stumbled upon a drug deal going on, or a drug drop from the cartel, or whether they were involved in something they shouldn't have been involved in. Now, one of the things that parents often do is say, well, my son wouldn't do that. And they seem to be relatively good kids, had good grades, they were popular, blah, blah, blah. But we already know two things. They are smoking marijuana, which, okay, it's not that big a deal, but it is illegal at the time, especially in the 80s. It was illegal. And they had to go buy the marijuana, which is illegal. And if they're going to go spotlight hunting, it's illegal. So we have a couple of boys who are willing to break the law in a couple of places. Now, a lot of people say they're just boys will be boys, they're just teens. They do stupid stuff. And that may be true, but you can't take it. You can't ignore it when you're looking at what they might choose to do behavior-wise. So it's like, let's say you have an eating problem, like you like to eat a lot, like you get cravings, and so you go eat more than you should eat. Not me. No. Anyway, so let's say I was spending some time at a friend's house. Oh, did I say me? I mean, some lady. Let's say some lady were at a friend's house and she was like watching the dog for like 6 hours. And And the next day, that there's this cheesecake that was in the refrigerator, and the person who put the cheesecake in there, which is probably the lady of the house, thought there were 5 pieces left, but now there's only 4. And she says, "Well, I don't think that the person that was watching the dog would have taken that cheesecake." No, I'm kidding. It was not me, really. That cheesecake does sound good now. Anyway, so would that person maybe, if they thought there's enough pieces left, maybe take a piece of cheesecake and not say anything? Well, maybe because a person has a problem where they get cravings and eat things when they eat more than they should. That's a silly kind of just a way to look at it. But when you see a couple boys and they're already willing to step across the line to smoke weed, to buy weed, to go out spotlight hunting, you got somebody who's crossing the line. And so the question is, how much further would they go? And maybe they go no further at all. But maybe they'd go further. Do we know? And if something happens, the problem is everybody likes to highlight all the good behaviors of the person. Nobody wants to say anything negative about a person who's been murdered. So I don't know how far they would go, whether they may have just gone out spotlight hunting and ended up screwed. You know what I mean? They could have just stumbled on something they shouldn't have stumbled on, like many people think, and they got killed just because they were there. They saw something they shouldn't have seen. A lot of people believe that. So we'll examine whether that is a likely possibility. So let me check your comments before I go on. I did not steal anybody's. I did not steal anybody's cheesecake. I did not, and I don't watch people's dogs. So, but I will say this: I am told that when I go to my daughter's house and watch my granddaughter or something like that, I'm allowed to go into the refrigerator. But I do very carefully determine if there's crab. It's like if there's crab cake left from a restaurant, I do not touch that because they're crab cake freaks over there. I'm not taking the crab cake. Raise your hand if you want cheesecake right now. I don't even really like cheesecake, but it's starting to sound really good. All right, so anyway, so as the story goes, they had gone out to get some weed, supposedly smoked some weed, went out spotlight hunting. And I would like to know, and this is where I find books very annoying, and shows oftentimes only can base on books. Well, I wanted, what's her name again? In this book, Mara Leverett. She spent a lot of time with the mother, Linda Ives. I want to know more. I want to know how often they hunted. I want to know how often they spotlight hunted. I want to know if Kevin Spotlight ever did that without Don. I want to know what Don's circumstances are. I want to know way more. And if I were investigating the case, I'd want to know more about their behaviors so I could figure out what would be more likely to happen. Because anybody who knows somebody will know there's things they would do and there's things they would never do. So answer the question about the cheesecake. If I were in my daughter's house watching my granddaughter, whatever, and she was asleep and I was just sitting there until her parents got home, I have the right in their house. And hopefully my daughter doesn't watch this and say, no, she didn't. I know I have certain access to food if I'm sitting there for a long time. I know what I can and cannot touch in the refrigerator. For example, if they have a big, huge thing of ramen, I would take one thing of ramen and eat that with not a question. If there were only one ramen left or 2 ramens left, I would never touch it. Why? Because that might be something they were saving because they were like, when I get home, I'm going to have some ramen. And then I took the last ramen. I wouldn't do that. So I don't have that. That's not the way I do things. So I only take what is acceptable to take that I know is approved of being taken. And I never take anything when it gets too low. So that might be something, somebody was saving or be upset if I took. So if I went to somebody else's house, not my daughter's house, and they're missing like a couple steaks went missing, I didn't steal them. I don't do that. So but if you know the person, you know where they're, kind of what they will and will not do. So I want to know more about these boys, but I couldn't find out more about these boys. So they did smoke weed. That is known fact. And here's what happened. when the medical examiner of the time examined them. And this is this joker here. Oh my God. Unbelievable. He was a state medical examiner, and I cannot fathom how he kept his job for as long as he did. And that people think there's a lot of corruption and conspiracy because of that. His name was Fahmy Malak. He was born in Egypt, came over to the U.S. and became I don't know if he was already a medical examiner in Egypt or he became one here. But anyway, he attained the level of being a medical examiner. That's a lot of work to get there. He ruled the deaths an accident, saying the boys fell asleep on the tracks as a result of marijuana intoxication. He actually said, now get this, folks, who don't know this case, he said they smoked the equivalent of 20 marijuana joints. I'm like, what? What? I mean, there are only two of them. That means they had to smoke 10 marijuana joints a piece. First of all, it's expensive for a teenager. You're smoking up everything you just bought, or more than what you bought. Because I'm not even sure if a $10 bag is going to, what's that going to get you anyway? So you're going to smoke 10 joints a piece? Get out of here. In my younger days, I knew some people that smoked a little bit of weed. Was in the room with them. You might, if you're going to smoke 10 joints, you'll be there all night long with 10 people. That's insane. And of course, back in those days, it was most likely homegrown for teenagers that age. It wasn't. Today, marijuana is so strong that if you smoked one joint, you could be going to sleep on the tracks. But back in those days, it was mostly homegrown. Now, mind you, they had the Colombian cartel is supposedly possibly involved in this, in which case the weed could be coming from Colombia, which would be Colombian gold, I think it was called at the time, red. Can't remember. And then there was a thing called Hawaiian Maui Wowie, but these boys weren't getting that. So the chances of it just being homegrown were very strong. So, there's just no way they smoked 20 marijuana joints. I mean, that's just stupid. It's just stupid. So, and the parents are like, say what? It's like, there's no way. They didn't even find, no, they did not. Absolutely insane. I mean, where did the guy even come up with this absolute garbage is a question. So anyway, he also said this, was there a stab? The answer is no, they were not stabbed. Actually, they were stabbed. So luckily, one of them was stabbed. They got this guy to perform, Joseph Burton performed the second autopsy. He's really good. He's in that link up, but below with the short version. He's really interesting. I like this guy a lot. And he did say that, so Kevin took a blow to the face. Hold on a second. Kevin and Don had been murdered, Don with a knife in his back and Kevin with a blow to his face, a blow that might have come from the rifle butt. And the amount of marijuana had in his system was equivalent to like one joint. That was it. So they did not do that much and lie down and go to sleep in the tracks and be unconscious. No, it's absolutely ludicrous. And one of them had a stab wound in the back and the other one was hit. As far as the markings went, looked like he got hit with the butt end of the rifle that they had. They were murdered. And this joker, this absolute joker, I mean, whew. Anyway, he didn't get fired right away either. He lasted for a heck of a long time. But they didn't accept that stuff. They thought that was ridiculous. So the second autopsy by the Georgia medical examiner, Joseph Burton, found the equivalent of 1 or 2 marijuana cigarettes. Then a grand jury ruled the deaths a probable homicide. Well, if you were also stabbed in the back and had your head smashed in, I'm going to say not so probable. Anyway, so the parents pressured the sheriff of the county. His name was James Steed. He refused to investigate the case. He's like, I don't know why. So it gets very complicated. So I'm not going to get into all that. Then what happened is a different guy came along. Hold on a second. Let me check my tiny pictures, which I can't see. Okay. Oh, this is okay. That was the tarp thing. Okay. This is a guy named Harmon, Dan Harmon. He was the parents' attorney and he was the county prosecutor. It's Saline County, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. SALINE County prosecutor. So anyway, he hooked up. The parents got him to agree to investigate the case, and they were going to leave Steed alone to the sheriff just to just so they could go ahead and not have to deal with the sheriff. Uh, so, so, so Harmon took over, and he was considered this guy, rapidly becoming the county's most prominent anti-drug crusader. Isn't that awesome? Amazing. So he was on their side. He was going to find out who killed their boys because he said it was drug connected. He said it was drug connected. And then somebody said, you might want to watch out for Dan Harmon because he's one of the county's largest suppliers of drugs. And you say, oh, come on, that can't be true. But it is. So anyway, here he is when he got arrested finally. So Dan Harmon, that's him in his later years. Dan Harmon was legally convicted of running a drug distribution network, mostly marijuana and cocaine, although there are other viewpoints that he was also into meth. He also used meth himself. So he was convicted for having meth and I'll see what else he did. In 1997, the jury convicted him of conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute marijuana, and he used his political power to orchestrate a narcotics ring. Mostly he was corrupt as hell, and what he would do is tell people, if you give me so much money, I won't prosecute you. Convicted drug dealers testified that Harmon demanded lump sum cash payments or direct supply of drugs in exchange for dropping or reducing their criminal charges. And he also would go into the evidence locker and steal whatever the drug people had seized. He would then seize it back for himself, and he would put it back onto the black market. And he also got methamphetamine convictions. Let's see. They say that he reveal a less organized, more desperate operation. They caught Harmon attempting to supply methamphetamine to his girlfriend and another woman. And when he was cornered by the police at an apartment complex, he jumped into the swimming pool to dissolve the meth he was carrying on his person. So he got, how much time did he get? He got 8 years. He got 11 years total for conviction, racketeering, extortion, drug conspiracy, and 3 years added for the federal drug charges. He didn't serve the full 11 years. He was released in 2006 after serving 8 to 9 years in exchange for cooperating with the authorities. An unrelated murder conspiracy investigation. Okay, so he was a drug trafficker, and he was investigating these boys' case. And amazingly enough, he didn't solve the case. Isn't that interesting? Okay, this is absolutely true. In a small town, sometimes you have to do several roles like DA and drug kingpin. Drug kingpin. Got to arrest myself now. That is actually kind of true. In smaller towns, and I've seen this in places I've worked, that there's just sometimes what happens is you have a limited number of people that you can have for your sheriff, for your deputy, and there's a lot of politics involved. And so sometimes they cross that line into a whole lot of illegal crap. So, yeah. This is true that yes, tarps could be used by drug dealers to cover up their stuff, especially like in the back, put it in the back of your pickup truck, you can cover it with a tarp. Or you could also just have work stuff back there and cover it with a tarp. So, but yes, that is it. So now we have this whole case just sort of goes to hell. Then it gets a little bit more interesting in that there were these supposed witnesses. Okay, let's look at these witnesses. Here they are. Okay, so these are people who spoke up about what they thought happened, that they had knowledge of things. Like, for example, that the guy down at the bottom, the Keith guy, well, he I think he owned a bar, but he also was a huge drug dealer. So, and he ended up with 116 stab wounds or something like that. They did arrest somebody, but people think that wasn't the kid who did it. They think that that the small kid who was arrested for it couldn't have done it. And the small kid gave some stories about some clowns that came in to kill him. And then he said, no, they were just in black masks. And a lot of people think that whoever he pissed off, a group of them came in and stabbed him to death, and they just pinned it on the young kind of stupid kid. And then there was another guy who was riding his motorcycle. Supposedly he was being chased, and he slammed in the back of a truck. Another guy got shot with a shotgun, and another one disappeared. So I'm not getting into all of those guys, but they all said they knew something about this case. But what's interesting is that what they said they knew about the case didn't necessarily happen right away. So in other words, it was gossip that was out. People talked about things, and so it got to the point where this guy, I saw this in one of the comments. I think it's funny as hell. Come on now, with the number of people you say were on the tracks that night, it was as crowded as a drive-thru at McDonald's. Was there anyone left in town? Seems like they were all on the tracks. So many people had stories about what was happening on the tracks that it's like, there's all these witnesses, but they all saw something different, completely different. And yet they didn't see each other. You know what I mean? They're like, I was there and I was there, or he was there, but nobody. So the stories. And so all these people got murdered. But the question is, did they get murdered because of this case, or did they get murdered because they're scumbags who were involved in so many other stuff? They got killed. But if you put it together, and you got a lying medical examiner, you got a crooked prosecutor who's managing the drug business, and you got all these people get murdered right in the couple years after this crime goes down, and the crime is never solved. You kind of wonder, don't you? You know, I mean, who's involved with what? So yeah, you're going to change your plans. Loretta's not going to move to a small rural town. Okay, so now I want to point out one of the things that was said, and this is why you got to be careful of witness stuff. Okay, so this one was said. Okay, gee, I really want to pull that up. My camera is kind of overlapping that, and I want to read it from my computer so I can read the whole thing. When I drove by the store, I saw two cops with two boys. So one of the theories was somebody said that the two boys were down in the woods and they saw something they shouldn't have saw, and so they ran, and they were trying to escape from people who were trying to kill them. So they ran into town. I'm not sure. The town's not that, I mean, I don't know how close that store was. But anyway, when I drove by the store, I saw two cops with two boys. My first thought was the police had caught two boys breaking into the store. This is 4 a.m. One of the boys was taller and heavier set with light-colored hair. This boy was shoved up against the phone booth by a larger cop who had on a white pulled-over T-shirt and jeans. The other boy was on the ground outside the passenger side of the unmarked car on his knees with his head down. He was not moving. The smaller cop with the khaki-colored shirt picked that boy up and threw him in the backseat of the car. The larger cop hit the boy at the phone booth in the head with a phone receiver. That would be the one they thought was hit with the rifle butt. That would be Kevin. And so Kevin would have been in the phone booth. Don would have been on the ground. And they're saying maybe it wasn't the rifle butt. Maybe this guy's saying he was being hit with a phone receiver. The boy was not resisting. The boy went down when he was hit, and the cop picked him up and threw him in the backseat of the car. Also, the smaller cop was then looking around. The cop by the phone booth picked up a little 22 rifle and threw it in the car with the boys. The larger cop got into the passenger side. Okay, that's a story. Now I want to read one more thing about the story. Listen very carefully. One of the boys was taller and heavier, set with light-colored hair. He's talking about Kevin. This boy was shoved up against the phone booth. The other boy was on the ground outside the passenger side on his knees with his head down. Now, what's wrong? Right away, what's wrong with this statement here? Anybody got it? What's wrong with the statement? What a nightmare town if it's true. Yeah, I don't know. Part of the town is probably fine if you're not involved in the bad stuff. So what's wrong with the statement? This is a profiling question. One of the boys was taller and heavier set. The boy was shoved up against a phone booth. The other boy was on the ground on his knees with his head down. Doesn't look, heavy set. Okay, ignore the heavy set. Go with the taller issue. One of the boys was taller. He was standing up by the phone booth. The other one was on the ground, on his knees. Come on, somebody's statement analysis here. Nobody's coming up with it. Thank you, Texas Redhead. There you go. All right, now that's it. You don't know how tall the other one is. Exactly. So, yeah, you wouldn't know if someone's kneeling. You can't know their height. Exactly. So that's the whole point. This guy's saying one is taller, you can't know that. On top of it, he was drunk. He was very drunk. And the reason he supposedly saw this happening was he pulled over because he didn't want to get caught by the cops because he was so trash drunk. And now he's looking over, he's seen the scene, and he goes on. It's just a ridiculous scene. It's ridiculous. So, and by the way, the light was found by the train tracks too. So if the cop took the rifle and threw it in the car, what did he do with the light? He didn't see that, I guess. So the whole thing's stupid. And I don't know how you're throwing boys in the car. I mean, you might drag them, but I don't think throwing is. So I think the guy just made up this garbage. So you got to be careful of witness stuff, because a lot of times the witness stuff is wacky. All right. But then you have this theory, which is the drug cartel theory, and the fact that the boys ran into something they shouldn't have seen. Because we're still looking at why they got killed, because, I mean, they still got killed. They were murdered when they went out into those woods. Why? All right. So let's look at the drug cartel issue. The whole thing they're talking about has to do with Barry Seal. Now, Barry Seal is a real person. Barry Seal was a drug runner for the Medellin cartel out of Colombia and for Pablo Escobar. All right, bad guy. And what he had was a whole bunch of little planes that he moved drugs in, okay? So he was a commercial airline pilot, and he became a major drug smuggler to the Medellin cartel. And what happened was he was moving all that stuff, and he got caught. So then he got caught during the whole thing by the DEA agents. And when he surrendered, they made a deal for him to then go undercover against, Pablo Escobar, the Ochoa brothers, and all the people running this whole thing. So then he was flying down to Nicaragua and all this stuff. He's going back and forth and supposedly ratting people out. And this happened in approximately 1984 was when he decided to turn, become a snitch, So he did that. And the reason that he's connected with the area in Arkansas is this. Let me try to explain this part to you. All right, so let me go back here. So when you watch these 4 hours worth of videos, you're going to get a lot of the Barry Seal stuff. And first of all, Barry Seal was dead by the time they were murdered. So it wasn't Barry Seal wasn't involved. But did that mean his network was completely down? In other words, he was running a huge network. And you can't, even though he was working now for the government, you don't know how much side stuff he was doing, or if he was working for the government, how much of other stuff continued in his name, or essentially his methodologies. So here's where I want to find this one part. Okay. So he used to go out of Louisiana, and he was getting a lot of attention. He was using over a dozen aircraft in the smuggling operation. And now the planes were going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And Louisiana State Police and FBI is going, I don't think he's like just taking little trips, for no reason. I mean, where are these planes going? And of course, they were suspicious of them. So to avoid this unwanted attention, Seal moved his aircraft to Mena, I think it's, I don't know, MENA, Mena, I don't know, Intermountain Regional Airport in Arkansas. That airport is approximately, okay, there it is. It's about 2 hours away from Alexander, Arkansas, where the boys were murdered. It's 2 hours away. So, but they could be flying in drugs there, and then of course the drugs could be coming down the road or whatever, then being transported into Alexander. I mean, Alexander had marijuana, cocaine, and meth. Meth labs the meth was probably from the meth labs. But I mean, I don't know. When Mexico got into methamphetamine, also was in the 80s. So yes, meth could have be transported in, or they could have been local meth labs. And then you've got the cocaine and marijuana, which were being transported in for sure, and except for maybe some homegrown. So there was definitely, and there was all these people who were involved in drug trade. So there drugs were being brought in to Alexander. Get that? They absolutely were being brought in. And people were selling them. So there was drug trafficking, no question. All right. So Seal moved his aircraft to this airport 2 hours away from Alexander to do maintenance and modifications to improve the plane's carrying capacity and avionics. Seal's activities in that area, Mena, later became a subject of rumor and controversy. But according to Seal's biographer, former FBI agent Del Hahn, Seal did not use Mina or whatever as a drug transshipment port. So, however, later on, they claimed that he did use Mina Airport for smuggling activity from late 1980 until 84, and they were murdered a few years later. Okay, so conflicting information on that, but could there still be some drugs transported into that airport? Absolutely. Now, this is what, and when we look at theories like this of how much the cartel is involved in things, I am not one to lean, not believe that cartel exists. I absolutely know the cartel exists. There's another fellow I just want to mention to you because I'll do a show on this one day. His name was Dan Mitrione. It's actually Dan Mitrione Jr. His photo is not on the book because he doesn't want his photo out there. He is now he's a true crime writer at some point in time. He wrote 4 books. He lived in Kansas and wrote 4 books, but that's not exactly who Dan Mitrione Jr. was. He was a true crime author, right? He was, and here's this thing from Time. The FBI gets its man. When an undercover agent returned from his assignment in Memphis with only 425 pounds of cocaine instead of 518 pounds he was supposed to have seized, federal authorities became suspicious. Surveillance revealed that Dan Mitrione Jr., 38, a 10-year FBI veteran, had been involved on the sly in the same drug deals he was assigned to monitor. He was working on a thing called Operation Airlift. And he sold more than 90 pounds of cocaine skimmed from the Memphis bus for cash and property worth about $850,000. He took bribes from drug traffickers he was investigating. An FBI director said the corrupting power of drug money is one of the most obvious reasons why it's the number one problem we must overcome, but we caught him. Yeah, okay. But you didn't charge him with the likely murder of one of your pilots, Gary Weaver. You didn't get him for the bomb that is believed that he exploded under the car of his partner. I think his name was Santini. I can't remember. And when everybody thinks he went to federal prison, but he didn't. He ended up doing some time in I think it was a monastery in my county, in this area in my county, a monastery, doing some help with teenagers with drug problems. I mean, you can't make this shit up, but it's outrageous. So here's a guy who was an FBI agent who worked for the drug cartels. He should have been in prison for the rest of his life. Why wasn't he? And there's almost nothing on this guy. I mean, this little thing, it's just like, hey, the FBI did the job. No, they didn't. This guy ran these operations for a long time, committed crimes that were pretty bad. And he gets this, go help some children and stay at this monastery, and then we'll ship you out to Kansas and you can become a true crime writer? Something's fishy. Is there corruption in the FBI? I'd say yes. Is there some conspiracy things going on? Maybe. So you have Seal doing a bunch of stuff too. So a lot of times they're using criminals to try to catch other criminals, but then it's always questionable who the criminal actually is. And there's a whole bunch of these cases. Whitey Bulger case is another one that a whole bunch of shady crap going on with the authorities. So, and now you have this small town, and you've got a prosecutor who's involved in the drug trade. So yes, that stuff goes on. So it's unbelievable. So, and I have to look back at some of the, I have to do this show one day, but I've got so much information on it. Gary Weaver's wife called me on it years ago, and I thought she was maybe just making up like she was a little loony or something. Turned out she was actually telling the truth, and I worked with her on it for a long time. And she had the media involved. It's just they never ever were able to pin anything the death of her husband on him. But he did a job and went to the Bahamas and didn't come back flying the plane. So yeah, and that is true. That is a good point. Christoph says, after all the cases Pat has discussed, be careful with witness statements and police sketches, weak evidence or clues. It's much more complicated than people think. Okay, so now let's get to what the hell happened to these boys. So some of the big conspiracy theories on this, you can call them that, would be this. that there was two boys died because there was a drop zone for dope coming out of Texas. This is the informant. States that there's a good possibility that the two boys were not ripping off a marijuana patch. What? So they were out ripping off a marijuana patch, but trying to rip off a drug drop that had been dropped from either the airplane or passing train. Now, first of all, you don't drop. So people have been saying there were these low-flying planes. They heard some low-flying planes in the night, which didn't have lights on them or something. But you don't. Well, first of all, you don't drop the stuff on the tracks, because then your drugs smash open with the gravel and the metal. So you don't do that, and then the train runs it over. So you don't do that. You find a field. You also don't drop the thing into the forest. So there would have to be a field, and there are some fields nearby, but they'd have to know where the field was or have any reason to go to the field when they're supposed to be out. Theoretically, they're supposed to be out looking for deer in the middle of the night. But that's why I want to know where there was no information. I never get this in the book. I couldn't find one picture, a map of where all this happened. I would like to have known in that area exactly from where their bodies were found. How would somebody get their bodies there? I mean, they'd either have to drive close to the track someplace and bring their bodies in, or they'd have to be nearby in the woods someplace when it happened and carry the bodies in. But I can't get information as to a layout of the map. I want that. I want a layout, and I want to know where everybody was. I want to know where all the houses were. I want to know where the fields are. And I couldn't find one thing of that. I went online and tried to find stuff, but the pictures I'm seeing now are, of course, for 2026. So just the housing areas have moved in. And so I can't tell what was what back in the 1980s. So were there marijuana farms there? Well, I don't know. Were there other houses somewhat nearby in there where you might have people there who also do hunting at night or don't want you on their property? So if you're crawling through the woods, because they were there, his house was just a mile down the tracks from where the bodies were found. So supposedly they're right on the tracks. So they were just coming out of the mobile home, going through all the woods here, and supposedly looking for, I guess, deer. So, it supposedly looks sort of like that. Now, again, I don't know. Are there little nooks and crannies where you could have a weed field? Are the people living there? I don't know. And I can't figure out how close you can get with a truck. But obviously the bodies were put there, so that we know. The tarp was most likely used to carry the body. So I want to point that out. So, and usually you don't. Where do you have a tarp? Well, if you were just in the woods hanging out, you probably wouldn't have a tarp. So the tarp would have to come from a home or in the back of somebody's pickup. And after this happened, they used the tarp to carry if you're taking a vehicle, you put them on the tarp and then you drive them to that spot. And then you try to carry the bodies to the track. Now, they may have had to take one body at a time, because I don't know how you take two at a time unless you got four people. So if you have two people, you would carry one body to the track, probably in the tarp, so you don't blood all over you or whatever. Carrying them in the tarp, you get them to the tracks. You just dump them on the tracks. You roll them out on the track. You go back, you get the other body, you bring it back and dump it on the tracks. At that point, why they left the tarp, I don't know. Could be, again, I don't think it was they were covering up the bodies because they thought the train wouldn't see them then, because they didn't cover it up that way. I think it's more likely maybe there was just blood on. They just didn't care. They didn't think. And to me, that shows that it's kind of panic thing. So they're just, okay, they just got the second body there and they just dumped it and left the tarp and ran off. That's what I think happened. Now, who were these people though? And so what had happened was people were claiming that they had these low-flying planes, but nowhere in the book or any place else do I see any evidence that prior to this moment, they had documented drug drops from airplanes, ever. So it wasn't even proven there were drug drops there. Now, I don't know how drugs got in. It could be that drugs were just being brought in on trucks and cars. I mean, maybe they came into the airport, somebody from in that area or whoever put those things in the back of his vehicle and drove them over to the location. Maybe there were never any drug drops. I don't know, because but no, not one drug drop is alluded to. Like, but back in April of whatever, there was a drug drop. No. So I don't believe that there were planes coming low and dropping drugs, and that they just stumbled upon a drug drop site and got killed for it. That seems pretty unlikely. Now, a lot of people say this, that they had this light, and maybe the light was really bright, and then they didn't realize what was going on. Suddenly they got caught because of the bright light, and the drug droppers didn't like that. Yeah, the light, if they were using it, could have been something that had them stand out. So yes, could they have been seen by somebody who was doing a drug deal? Absolutely. Now, but the drug drop, I just don't think they saw something drop out of the airplane. I think if they saw something drop out of the airplane, they would run away really quickly. They're in the woods. They're supposed to be skulking around there. I think they'd run real quick. But anyway, then they said this. Then there's this. So one of the theories is that they were going to steal marijuana. The second theory is that they were going to steal cocaine from they're teenage kids. They're going to go there and watch a drug drop, and then they're going to run out in front of out in front of the cartel people and try to steal their cocaine. If you believe that one, that's just silly. So anyway, it says here, yeah. So an unidentified individual with a large drug drop near the tracks. That's what he was supposedly. Somebody said this was happening. He's an informant. Information was that Don Henry and Kevin Ives decided to rip off the drugs, but that the two men caught them and were going to rough them up, and things got out of hand. And one of the boys was hit with the butt of the gun and killed, so they had to kill the other boy because he was a witness. Okay. I go with the two men. I don't think the concept that they were going to steal from big, huge drug dealers. I mean, if these guys weren't involved in anything more than buying a $10 bag of weed, somehow I just don't see them as having the balls to decide they're going to rip off a major drug dealer. So that to me is so ludicrous. It's like, oh, come on now, stop it. Now, the next thing is, if they were the cartel wasn't very well armed. I mean, one of them got hit with the butt of the gun, and the other one got stabbed in the back. Where's the guns? I mean, and why aren't they shooting them? I mean, if they want them to shut the hell up, they just shoot them, but they're not shooting them. So they're very close in area, and the people aren't using, except for the knife is their own knife, but almost, guys carry knives. I mean, it's not that big a deal. But so they did obviously get attacked by, I do think, two people. I think one person hit Kevin with the butt of the gun, and the other guy, Don, said, "Oh crap," and ran for it. And the second person ran after him and stabbed him because he was a witness to, well, what had happened. What crime he was a witness to, I don't know. Crime of drug dealing, or the crime that somebody smashed his head in with a gun butt? I don't know. So the question is, why were they there at the spot where two bad people were there that they got into an altercation with and lost? What could the possibilities be? So I'll go to you for that. What are the possibilities if you get away from the cartel? You don't think drugs had anything to do with it? Okay, Carol, what do you think had to do with it then? So there are more than one possibilities here, but what's the other choice? If you don't think drugs had anything to do with it. So the boys definitely told Dad, we're going out hunting in the night. Now, they may have been hunting or they may not have been hunting. So that's a question. Couldn't it have been, Christoph says, just a simple murder? It doesn't have to be anything complicated or exotic. And then they were left on the tracks to destroy evidence. I definitely think the fact that they were left on the tracks, to me, is more of a panic thing to me. Cartel might have buried them so they'd never be found. But like, oh man, what do we do with this shit? Oh, the train tracks are right there. Why don't we just stick them on the train tracks and have the train run over them? That's what I would think if I just sort of did this and hadn't planned anything. And I just put them on the train tracks. So it looked like an accident. I mean, you would think it looked like an accident. Now, were they put in a position that made it look like an accident? No, because they're idiots. So the people that did this weren't bright. They weren't seasoned killers. They put them laid down, next to each other in a way that they did not look like as an accident. It looked like somebody put them there. So to me, that was just not too bright, but was a good way to just dump the bodies and have a train run over. I can see their thinking. So yeah, but drug related, but not cartel related, says Clarissa. Could be. Oh, interesting point. Moonshiners. Well, one could go there. Poachers. Could be. Illegal hunting. Could be. Maybe they saw someone trying to get rid of a body. Another one. They should have put that in the train track with them. So those are some reasonable thoughts. Now, if they went out there to go hunting, and that's what they went out there for, because they just wanted to go hunting at night, then they had to come across something or come across someone who they got into a confrontation with. So they could have seen a drug deal. It's possible. Could have been some guy sitting there just giving drugs to the other person, and they ran into him and said, "Oh, what's going on, man?" And the guy said, "Get the frick out of here." And he's like, and then he grabbed the guy's gun and hit him, and then it went bad. Could be that simple. It could be other people. He was on the property of somebody and they didn't like him there for whatever reasons. Like, you're not going to be hunting on my property, and so he got angry and just grabbed the gun out and hit the guy, and then it went bad. But I think there's two people, so less likely that that's possible, because usually if you got somebody who's pissed off, you're on their property at 4 a.m, or 2 a.m, whenever this happened. It's usually just one person, but drug deal type things, more likely to be more people. Yeah, they had a gun. That's what they did. That they actually had done this before. They were doing spotlight shooting. We bring a big spotlight and a gun, and one person puts a spotlight out, and the deer goes like this, and the other person shoots them from an angle. So who knows? Could have been a situation crime and escalated. Could be. They didn't have. I don't think they had a bunch of money. Yes, they were probably already dead or very close to already dead. Yeah. The police. Now, the police have been brought into this. I just don't think this. To me, this is not a police killing. It's not smart enough to be a police killing. It's just dumb. And the reason people think the police are involved is because it didn't seem to be all that. The guy that showed up there didn't seem to be all that interested. But at that point, and I doubt he was the guy that would have committed the crime. You see, so when he showed up, he probably did think it was an accident. He just didn't really want to do the work. So a lot of incompetence and a lot of laziness happened in departments. Believe me, I've seen this over and over again. So, and they don't. When witnesses tell them something, a lot of times they just don't give a crap. They're like, yeah, whatever. You probably just think you saw that, because they don't want to waste their time with it. If they've already decided it's an accidental death, two boys got drunk or stoned and got hit by a train, whatever. And it isn't until later that it doesn't pan out to be so, and then you haven't collected the evidence properly, but you're just an idiot. There was a concept that the cops were out there at that location to protect the drug deal going down, like the drop. They were out there to protect the people doing the drop. And again, we're back to a big cartel drop, and I just don't buy that. Were the police involved in, some of the police may have been involved in drug trafficking? Yes, because you got the prosecutor involved in drug trafficking. So could somebody be helping somebody out? Sure. Could the police know who did it and just don't want to rat them out? It's possible. Could it be their own kids? Could be. But I can't see anything about the crime itself which looks like it's conducted by somebody with law enforcement methodologies. It just seemed, and it looks like to me they didn't have weapons outside of a knife, and it was a very just a quick. Somebody got pissed off and attacked them for some reason. Now, the other major reason I think it could be a drug deal is because it is possible that these boys did go to meet somebody for a drug deal, and they're not going to tell dad, "Oh, dad, we're home now, but we want to go back out because we want to buy some cocaine." They're not going to tell dad that. So they said, we're going to go hunting. And what we're going to let me get my gun and this light. We're going hunting. And then they go down to where they're supposed to meet the person for the drug deal. What goes wrong there? I don't know. Could it be that they got ripped off? Could it be they didn't bring the right money? Could it be somebody got angry? Because who knows? Maybe somebody's on meth and they're all wacky. They're so they're not, they're very on edge and very excitable, very dangerous. Sometimes people on meth are very dangerous because they become very agitated easily. Somebody just got pissed off and hit the first kid, and that was the domino effect right there. Is it that basic? And I think it could well be that basic. Just a couple guys doing a drug deal. Either they went to the drug deal or they ran into the drug deal. I personally don't think it's an issue of them being on somebody's property, doing illegal things, because because I know there's two people involved. And again, usually it's just one homeowner that's out there getting mad. And I see two people involved in this, because one is hitting the guy it's not unlike you're going to hit the guy with that and then you're going to run after the other guy and pull your knife out. It sounds like a two-person job to me. And then you have to carry the body. So that's a two-person job again. So two people involved in something illegal that went bad. It escalated quickly. And they didn't know that they were stuck with the situation, and they just thought the easiest thing to do was to put them on the damn tracks. And whether anybody actually knows who did it, or were they just suspicious of who did it? Like, I thought those guys, I thought they were going to go buy some. I thought maybe they were going to meet somebody, and maybe weren't they going to go meet John and Joe? And John and Joe said, well, it wasn't us. We didn't go down. Maybe they know who did it, but again, is there any evidence? Apparently, there's no DNA evidence. There's no video evidence. There's no witness evidence. Oh, wait a minute. Everybody saw everything happening on the tracks. Like 700 people were there. But other than that, nobody really seems to have seen what happened. What have they got? They don't have, the knife isn't there either. So whoever did it, now the tarp too, if the tarp wasn't cared for, maybe they could have had some evidence from the tarp, but the tarp disappeared. Now, it's also possible when the tarp disappeared, it's possible that it was lying by the track and it blew off, and the engineer had his light on it, his flashlight on it, and said, "Hey, please look, see, it's down there." And the guy's like, "Whatever." And then they're like, so they walk away. Who knows? The two guys that killed them might have said, "Oh man, what are they doing up there? Oh God, they see the tarp. Oh, the tarp blew off. Oh, it's our tarp. We should go get it. It didn't get ripped up under the train. Oh crap." Don't know. But I don't see this to be all the cartel stuff. Are there cartels? Absolutely. Is there corruption? For sure. Are there people in law enforcement and in criminal justice that are involved in drug trafficking? 100%. But was that an issue in this particular case, or was it just that this little incident happened with a lot of drug users, drug dealers, and corrupt and criminal people all around them, so that it's confusing as to who was actually involved in and what. So if this guy gets killed, it may not have anything to do with this. This guy gets killed, it may not have anything to do with that. It's just there's so much bad behavior and so much people ripping people off and whatever that's going on. Obviously, a lot of people did get sort of killed, and these boys got killed. But yeah, so it's I think all these shows and the book that have this hours and hours and 200 pages worth of talking about Bill Clinton somehow involved, and everybody at every level of the government is involved, and FBI is involved, the CIA is involved, everybody who's anybody is involved. I don't see it, and that it necessarily connects to this exact case, other than the fact I do think it was likely there was a drug deal going on by some low-level drug people, just town drug dealers. And they either went to buy some drugs or they ran into it. I don't know which one. So I'll go back to some of your comments. No idea. I wish. There was what was a gun recovered? What gun? What gun? I'm sorry. Oh, the gun. Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about it was on the tracks. I'm sorry. It was laid on the tracks. That's one of the reasons the father, this guy said, there's no way they laid on the tracks and he wouldn't put his nice gun on the gravel track. So they just left the gun with him, and and the gun and the flashlight were there. The train just ran over. I think the flashlight was by the side. They probably used that to help get the bodies there because they couldn't see themselves. They probably borrowed the flashlight, and then they just put the gun on the tracks. So and they didn't find any, supposedly no evidence with the gun either. It was kind of mangled up, but yes, spotlight hunting is illegal. That's correct. So the gun was on the tracks, yes. Oh, well, yeah. So shining a light on a deer and then shooting it, that's just not right. But those two aren't exactly nice people either. People like that often hang out with other weirdos. And that's a point where you're already doing something. See, hunting is extremely popular down there, squirrel hunting, deer hunting. So there is a level of people being very comfortable with killing animals. I mean, I've always had issues with that, but I've known people who that's their big thing. And generally speaking, they're nice people, but they don't seem to have a heart much for the animals. They don't mind shooting a deer, a little doe in the face. They don't. They don't mind. They skinning it and chopping it up doesn't bother them. And of course, people go fishing and kill the fish the same way. Bird hunting. I mean, it's a human thing. A lot of people do hunting. So, but spotlight hunting, the fact that you're doing something that is illegal and is kind of a cheap trick. You know what I mean? And that's why it's illegal. There's rules. The rules of the game. There's rules for fishing. There's rules for hunting. And there are people that violate those kind of rules because, first of all, they like to hunt. And secondly, they don't really care about the rules because some people will say, okay, you should never hunt an animal without a bow and arrow. You got to really, don't use a gun because that's not fair because you got too much advantage over the animal, with a scope and everything. And, and they're in the blinds and all that. So all the things you can do to fool the animal. So you should just be walking through with your bow and arrow, and that would be more fair. I agree with that. But then there's all these different levels. What gun you can use, fancier gun, all these methodologies. And then there's places where, like sometimes in Africa, people will fly low and just shoot the animals from the plane, or people will just drive by the animals and shoot them. I mean, there's all kinds of crappy things that go on. In Rwanda, the problem they had with the gorillas being killed just so they could sell their little hands and their heads. I mean, obviously, somebody says, well, if I killed this gorilla, I can provide food for my family for a year. And they don't have a love for the gorilla. It's just an animal. So, you can go through all of whether, how bad a person is. But the point of you're breaking, though, that if they're willing to break that rule, are they willing to break another rule? In other words, so they bought marijuana. That's true. Were they also thinking maybe we could buy cocaine? I would like to know about the financial situation of the boys. I want to know, did they like to buy things that they couldn't afford? Did they start buying things that they couldn't afford? I would like to know that, to know whether maybe they thought they could do a cocaine deal, they could go back to school and sell the cocaine and make a profit. Maybe. That I don't know, because it's interesting how the books and the shows don't really talk about this stuff. It's like except for the people in town who said they were trying to steal stuff, which I find that's ludicrous in my opinion. I can't imagine teenagers trying to steal from a seasoned drug dealer. I mean, maybe they're that stupid, but I don't think so. I think in more cases they would be buying from them, not stealing from them. And so, yeah, but it's odd that the people in town were more likely to say they were stealing than they were buying. So it's like, what? That's very interesting. I don't think it was staged, because what's the point? See, that's the thing. I think, people think staging, there would be no point to staging at all. I mean, they're trying to get rid of the bodies. They're trying to get the train to run them over. I don't think so. I think the fact that they're, when you put a body on the track and you just dump it there, and you come with the next one and dump it there, it just may be that you dump them next to each other. That's it. You dump them in a way that you thought the train would run them over. And you dump one there, and then you dump the next one there. And then you put the gun down there and walked away. I don't see what the staging is. Or there's any reason at all for staging. No, I don't see what when you stage a scene, it's to have people think something different happened than what actually happened. And the only thing you could think of is like, okay, the boys went out hunting and they had the tarp and they decided to smoke a ton of weed and then take a nap on the tracks, but they wanted to pull up a little blankie over themselves, except that it was August and hotter than hell. So that kind of doesn't make sense. So that does just there's just no evidence of staging at all. So I would not think that works. That's probably a little extreme, Loretta, that they would be whacking and stabbing trespassers, especially teenagers on the property. There are some people who are pretty wacky themselves, who are hunters and very vicious about this stuff. Theoretically, the boys pissed him off. One of them could say, "You should get the hell out of here," and hit him, and then he hit him too hard, and then he's like, "Oh my God, there goes the other one." I would leave it as a possibility. Yeah. Just witnessing wrong place, wrong time. Maybe because with this location that the people were doing whatever drug dealing, if that's what it was, they didn't assume anybody else was going to sneak up on them at 4 o'clock. Well, it wouldn't be 4 o'clock, it'd be more like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. But then again, were they just witnessing it, or did they go to make a drug deal? Um, well, Christoph says, culling deer to control overpopulation, for example, is a different matter than killing some animal just because you're pathetic and cowardly. Everybody has their levels of what they think is acceptable and not. So, just like people say, well, as long as I kill the animal and eat the meat, or kill the fish and eat the fish, that's, the animals themselves, cows don't kill any other animals, but that's the way the world works. And we're using the meat. We're not wasting it. Just putting up, we're not just doing it to stick a head on the wall. So everybody's got their different levels of what they find offensive, but it doesn't really matter. The point being is not in criminal profiling. It isn't a matter of judging people and whether you like or dislike what they do. It's a matter of what are their behaviors here that might have ended up with behaviors here. That's the only person. That's what's important. Other than that, it doesn't really matter. At least, they're not my kids, they're not my friends, it's not my town. So I don't have to worry about the morality necessarily, or the ethics, or whether I think hunting is good or bad. So you think I would say these young boys weren't on their way to a lawful future? Well, I don't know. They actually this one was supposedly had a good plan for the future. So, and you can have a good plan for the future, what you're going to be doing, but meanwhile you get a little sidetracked. And maybe he got sidetracked by this guy. I don't know. They said that he was kind of one of these class clown types, but real fun and all that stuff. But he seemed to be quieter, and he seemed to follow him. So, yeah. What was the condition of the body before autopsies? Well, they're in pieces. They did have a full torso for Dawn, which is why they found the stab wound, and they found the clothes also. Then they found the clothes. There was actually a stab wound to the clothes, so that's why they're pretty sure that's correct. They found his head, and they found the imprint on his head, which matched the butt of the gun. And the rest of the body, his body was no. I don't think there was a torso for him. Just mangled up under the train, and one of the feet they overlooked a foot, and somebody had to find a foot later. So parts of the body were just it's a mangler, so that they got a head and a torso is kind of amazing, because they could have not had that either. Christoph says, if it was just one person, they were both young and healthy men, you'd have to be really brave or have a gun to keep them under control, but they weren't shot. Was it more than one person? Yes, I think it was two people. And it wasn't an execution. If there's cartel people, real, whatever, it might have been an execution. Even with the police, if they were guarding something, the police could have just, if they were guarding something and the boys came upon something, they could say, hey, we're doing some work in this area, get away. They could have just told them to get lost. And they probably would. What are you doing out here in the middle of the night? Do you want us to arrest you? No, get the hell out of here. That would be more likely what they'd say. If it was somebody they really came upon, see that again, how much are they going to know to tell somebody that would make a difference to anybody? And so what were they seeing that was so outrageous that if they let them go, they would rat them out? And then if that were true, you would think they'd have guns. You'd think they'd point the guns at them, tell them to get on the ground, and then they would either shoot them or they would cut their throats or whatever, what cartels do. But this kind of, it looks like it just was somebody got pissed off and grabbed the gun from one of the guys and whacked him with it. And then I say the other one tried to run and somebody just stabbed him in the back. But I think that makes it probably two people. But it seems to me like a spur of the moment type of thing, not any kind of plan thing. And that whole thing with the police were supposedly beating them. I mean, admittedly, the train ran over a lot of stuff, so it's hard to tell exactly what happened to the bodies. And I don't have access to the autopsy photos or really good information that's very helpful. So, and then the first medical examiner apparently smashed up a head, so rather badly. I don't know what he was doing, but I don't know. It doesn't sound like they found there was any proof that they were beaten. And that would say the way the thing went down, it doesn't make sense to me that, let's say the police were going to beat them. And so they take them aside and they start smashing on them, starts punching them in the face and all this kind of stuff. And then maybe one of them picks up the gun and hits them with it too. I guess they could have done that. And then why are they stabbing the other guy? If the guy's not running, why are they stabbing him? I mean, it just doesn't work for me. I'm going through it in my head and I just don't see it. They knew each other. I think they knew each other from school, but mostly I think it was like 6 months. I can't quite remember, but I think they were like buddies for like at least 6 months. No, not the cartel. Cartel's more brutal than you want to think about. Yes, I have seen the cartel murders. I don't think they need a train. They just chop them into pieces with a machete. Do it to send a message. Yes, that is true. Sometimes when they do chop them into pieces, they will then put them someplace, or they'll hang them off of bridges. The message is don't screw with our territory. But putting the boys on the track, there's no message in that. I mean, the train running them over. I don't see it as a message. I see it as a way they didn't know what to do with the bodies. They could have left the bodies there. I don't know that since they didn't get a bunch of stab wounds, maybe they didn't, when they did that, they weren't the kind of people that were good at actually doing the murdering part. So they just thought they put them on the tracks, it would just take care of it. Or maybe they got lucky and they're pretty much dead-ish with the one attempt. And they're like, were they the type to check their, pulse and all that stuff? Or they just thought, I think they're dead. Maybe they're not dead, but I think they're dead. Let's put them on the tracks. See, that's what I see. I don't see any kind of message in it or anything fancy. Okay, that's a good point. All right. Could they have known the people that killed them and recognized them for doing something nefarious? Yes, Allison. One possibility is that they were buying drugs from them. But usually, even if you're buying drugs from somebody, you're not going to rat them out because you're buying drugs from them. You kind of want to keep them as your dealer, you know what I mean? So that would be, if they met them, they may or may not have known them. Somebody could have said, the guys will meet you at such and such a place. And they went there to meet them and had no idea who they were. That's possible. Or somebody said, hey, we'll bring you this stuff this evening. We can be there at 2:00 in the morning. Or since they left at 12, we can be there at 1:00. We're going to be at the crossing, or we're going to be on the gravel road or whatever. We'll meet you over there. And they went over there. So they would have a clue who they were. But other than that, we're back to a large drug operation that they would have something incredible to tell, that they would be absolutely sure it was happening. They'd have to know it was a major drug drop or something. They had to see a bunch of people and planes flying over and drugs dropping and the police protecting it and all this kind of stuff. And then they're like, wow, why are the police? Oh my God, it's a drug drop and the police are protecting them. And the police go, hey, we can't let them walk because they're going to go back and tell their parents they saw officer so-and-so and officer so-and-so, dealing with a drug thing. Could that be true? Yes. Do I see that as the way it looks? No, I don't. So Colombian necklace. Oh, those are nice. Yeah, they have lots of interesting ways. All you do is have to watch one of the cartel shows like El Señor de los Cielos, or the very excellent El Patron del Mal. El Patron del Mal. That's the one about Pablo Escobar. Don't watch the Narcos one. That's not a good version of it. Watch the Colombian version, El Patron del Mal. The guy who plays Pablo Escobar, you think you're watching Pablo Escobar. It's unbelievable, and it's done so incredibly well. It's one of my favorite. It's not a documentary, but they almost make it seem like a documentary, even though it's not. It's a drama, but one of the best productions I've ever seen. El Señor de los Cielos is it's a telenovela. I think there's 9 seasons, and let's face it, the guy who plays the main character is very good looking, and so you're like, oh, he's killing people, but he's really handsome. So, I did what? Dumbo accent impersonating an intellectually challenged perpetrator? Did I do a bad accent? Forgot to feed my cat. Anyway, did I do a bad accent? I didn't know I did that. But I suppose there aren't enough drugs in that small town to make a murder seem likely. Oh, there were a lot of drugs in that town. There were a lot of drugs going on in that town, for sure. So there's definitely drugs being brought into that town. Here's something. Oh, I didn't think about this. This is an important point. I don't think Alexander, Arkansas was a huge town, right? So why would you do your drug drops there? Is it near Little Rock? It might be somewhat near Little Rock. I guess you could do it because it's out of the way, but then you'd be carting them away from that town. So, yeah, so it's possible that they're doing drug drops in the area, but the town is not so huge that they need to do drug drops for the town. So they'd be moving it elsewhere. So it's possible. I know I'd have to look into all the history of where drug drop locations were, why they chose them, and all that stuff. But not, it's not on my plan right now. But the problem is I don't see any evidence there was ever a drug drop in that town. Just because some people heard some low-flying planes. Who are these people? How often did they hear these low-flying planes? Were they drunk when they heard them? You know what I mean? Or were there just happened to be a plane that was going into an airport that they thought was low-flying? So one of the problems we have with a lot of, again, documentaries, books, whatever, YouTubers, is you're just getting some information, but they're not explaining that information or proving that that information has any accuracy to it. And that drives me crazy, because if you're going to say stuff, I want to know, if you're going to say stuff and don't know if it's accurate, you should say you don't know if it's accurate. Like I'm telling you, I don't know if there were drug drops in that town. I'm just not going to tell you a story. Oh my goodness, the drug, Barry Seal used to come into that town. He used to come and they had all the planes and there were drug drops. He came to the airport there and I'm just talking, that's all exciting. But that isn't accurate. And I'm talking like I know this is true, which I don't know. So I just have no evidence that there were drug drops in that town from airplanes or from trains. As a matter of fact, it seems unlikely. But yes, there was evidence. There's evidence of drug trafficking in that town because people got arrested for it. They admitted to it and they got killed for it. So yes, drug trafficking existed. Their drugs were brought into that town. They were sold in that town. So yeah, drug trafficking for sure. That's evidence. That the boys were killed, murdered, that's evidence. They were absolutely murdered. Who they were murdered by, we just don't know. And all I can say is my theory. The best theory I can come up based on what I see is that it was most likely a drug deal from some local dealers that they either came upon or went to buy stuff from. And something went wrong and somebody got angry and lost it, and then just dumped the bodies on the tracks in order to get rid of the bodies. That's it. Well, I can't tell you who it is in town. I don't know if somebody covered up who it is in town just because it was somebody they knew. They weren't going to rat them out. Maybe somebody even gave their name, but nobody could ever prove it. So I think it's going to stand there. But I think that whole concept of this, a cartel hit or some huge, huge conspiracy all the way up to Bill Clinton is just not true, to do with this town and this incident. No. And I don't even think the crooked prosecutor, I don't think, and who was a drug trafficker, I don't even think he had necessarily anything to do with this crime either. I thought he was going to keep looking good because he was dealing drugs and he was, doing all these bad things. He was going to pretend he was going to work on this crime. Because it was a couple of low-life dealers that had nothing to do with him. He could have pulled them in and made them look good. As a matter of fact, think about this. He was already dealing with people who've been caught for drugs. He was prosecuting people who were drug dealers. He's been prosecuting them as part of his job. He was doing that except for the ones that paid him off, but he was doing that. So if these weren't his drug dealers who might have killed these kids off, why wouldn't he want to solve that crime too and look good? Because he was very, very aggressive, very much, pro, I'm going to solve this crime type of thing. Or he could have gotten paid off, but not because he was involved with the crime, just because he was a crook. So I threw the Bush name out there too. People love to throw out all kinds of things. Cheryl says, flight paths and weather can produce an effect where large aircraft sound like they're landing on your roof. It happened in my neighborhood years ago. Yeah, there's that too. A lot of times we don't know what we're hearing. I mean, if we're just not familiar with it, how many times you've been in your house, you go, what is that? And you wonder what it is. What's a helicopter? Could be a police helicopter. They're searching it. Like one day I heard all this. I'm like, what's going on? Well, they were searching the area with police helicopters for somebody. I have heard planes come over. We're fairly near Air Force Base, so usually don't hear them, but every once in a while, I guess one takes a different route, and it's like, what the heck, So yeah, but I don't really know because I'm not very conversant about planes and flying things. Christoph says, Pat, I get that, but it must have been such a small amount of drugs. Is it really enough to do a double murder unless it was the heat of the moment? I'm going with the heat of the moment. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think these boys were going to buy like thousands of dollars worth of drugs if that's what they went there for. No, absolutely not. Yeah, it would have been something, but people have been killed over $5 before just because you got really hot-headed bunch of criminal-minded people who do some really stupid stuff. And who knows, this guy was supposed to be a big mouth person. Maybe he's a jerk. Maybe he started being a jerk too. I don't know. The thing is, we don't know what happened that night. They were also smoking weed, so maybe they were not as careful as they should be. Or they ran into something they shouldn't see. I don't know. Maybe they did run into a drug dealer who was going down there like, whoa, we were just looking for deer. And then somebody mouthed off and somebody got pissed off and it's not like they had a reason to kill them probably. It's just that they probably did. That's where I would go with. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Yeah. Harley says, I wouldn't expect a deathbed confession. I don't think whomever did this is not the worst they've done and they don't care that much. Probably not. And that may be true. Loretta says, sassy mouth got them killed. We don't know. We can't, if you're investigating a case or you're profiling a case, if I were profiling this with the police department right now, and this is all the information I have, this is it. I would say, because this is how I would put it. We have two boys who went out in the night to do one or the other of illegal things. They went to a legal spotlight hunt, which their father approved of, not her father, his father. They went to do that, or they went out to meet somebody, in which case they were probably going out to buy some drugs. So those are the two possibilities. And I can't tell you which one because it's impossible for me to do that. Now, when they got to the place, something happened. I can tell you it's something that happened quickly. Sounds like somebody got angry really quickly. It doesn't seem like an assassination or an execution, not assassination, an execution. It doesn't seem like these people had any real weapons with them, like any guns. I'm going to say two people they got pissed off at them. Why? I don't know. Because they didn't have the money they were supposed to have, and I was going to meet you, you're supposed to pay me, or I gave you money, or I gave you stuff last week and you didn't pay me. Now you're supposed to give me the money. You haven't given me the money yet. And you're coming here with your stupid excuse for why you didn't pay me. That pisses off people. When a drug dealer doesn't get paid, they don't like that. We don't know what the argument, it had to be some argument of some sort. Either you saw something you shouldn't have seen, or you didn't do what you're supposed to do, or you just pissed me off. So I would say, I don't know. Either they went to buy drugs or they ran into somebody selling drugs. Those are the most likely things. And two people who did something in an instant and put their body on the tracks just because they're like, oh, the tracks are nearby, so let's just dump the bodies here and run. Get away, just dump in our truck and leave. That's what I would tell the police. And I'd say, who did it? I'd say, I don't have any evidence that police were involved in the murders. I don't have any evidence that it's the cartel. It sounds to me like some low-level, not so bright folks, and a couple of them. That's what I would say. And that the tarp was left there because they carried the bodies there and they just forgot about it and left it there. That would be my analysis. I would give to the police. Now, what they do with that, they have to take into consideration what I think and is what I think makes sense to them. And then if it makes sense to them, who should they be looking for? What more evidence do they need to find? That would be the issue. And they probably would know a lot more than I would about, where people deal drugs and stuff like that. But that they didn't ever come up with anybody. Well, yeah, who knows? Well, I don't know if it's that bad, Christoph. In places like that, there are a lot of normal, sober people. What are you talking about? The majority of the town is normal people. I've been in these towns. I've worked in towns where, or real rural towns. I did. One of these days I'll do this case, but one of the cases was down in Palestine, Texas, and there's a joke. You know that people are rednecks when the porch collapses and kills 10 of their dogs. I go to Palestine, Texas. I'm sitting on these people's porch, and there's all these dogs howling underneath it. They were great. They were rednecks, yes, but they were great people. I really enjoyed their company. The daughter was murdered. One of the family wasn't a great person, in my opinion, but I mean, I got along with the sheriff's department there. It was really, most of the people there were sweet and wonderful. But there were only 3 industries in that town: working for the sheriff's department, working for the hospital, working for the mental institution, or working for the prison system. Because and when you come into town, there's a sign that says danger or beware. Hitchhikers might be escaping prisoners. It's a fascinating thought, but that doesn't mean the majority of people are criminals. The majority of people do what all of us do. They grow up, they fall in love, they get married, they have kids, they get pets, they want to provide for the family. So they're normal people. But unfortunately, also in areas where there's a lot of poverty and not a lot of job opportunities, there is a tendency for a lot of drug issues, especially when they're flooding the place with drugs. And so you can make money from drugs. That's what happens in urban areas. That's what just different areas of the country. Meth is out of control across the United States. It's interesting enough, it's out of control in Australia. It's out of control in Fiji and Hawaii because of all kinds of cultural situations. And there's different reasons why, like Fiji apparently is on a route to Australia. So there are freighters that come in there with a whole bunch. They use that as a stopover. In Hawaii, most of the methamphetamine comes by a plane because there's a stupid rule that you can't take people's packages and open them up and look and see what's in them when there's mail coming through the mail system or whatever. And the problem is almost everything in Hawaii has to be brought in, all the food, all the clothing, everything, because you can't truck things to Hawaii. They're in the middle of the ocean. So everything comes in from someplace else on a plane or by postal service. And so the cartels, the Mexican cartels, have used that as a great place to sell a ton of methamphetamine. And in Hawaii, what you don't have people making there's no meth houses there. They're making meth because they get it all, it's all shipped in. Whereas in Maryland, you got people cooking up the stuff. So meth and fentanyl, yeah, those two things are, yeah. So just to let you know, most of these places do have very nice people. That's also, that's a good point. Hey, good point, Loretta. Tarp might have had blood, so best to leave it behind rather than put it back in the truck. Very excellent comment. I like it. Yes, and that's what I love when people are thinking about these things and come up with something that I didn't mention, which sometimes it's because I actually didn't think about it. Sometimes it's because I'm in a 2-hour show and I don't have it. I'm not writing a book, as I always point out. I'm not writing a book where I go through every single possible detail. It's a show, and I don't edit. So, but that's very, very, very possibly true. One had a stab wound back, so he was bleeding, and the guy who smashed his head in, he could have been bleeding. Now there wasn't a lot of blood on the tracks, which is interesting. So that's why people thought they were very dead before the train hit them, so that they didn't spatter blood everywhere. So the blood has stopped circulating. But again, I don't have pictures. I can't prove that. It may be that they killed the guys, put them in the back of the truck, and spent 2 hours trying to figure out what the hell to do with them. In which case they had died after the fact, and they were just died on top of the tarp. But you're right. Maybe they got there and like, I don't want to put this back in the truck. Yeah, I think it's a good comment. Very good. Christoph is thinking of the film Deliverance. Yeah, I mean, it's that's a scary little film. I remember seeing Deliverance a long time ago. Yeah, it made these people scared of going in some small rural towns, and I've been to a lot of those rural towns, and the most part, everybody's very lovely. I've been treated well. I've been treated well pretty much every place I've ever gone. And a lot of times I'm doing investigations in very urban areas, which are also sometimes known as ghettos. And I've been in tiny towns, which people would say, oh my God. But I've generally speaking, everybody's nice at both of those places because most people aren't criminals. Thank God. Thank God. That is, and this is true. They might have been under the influence and not thinking well. So yeah, we always assume that the person who committed the crime is like, his brain is functioning properly. Not necessarily so. He could have. There was meth in the town. He could have been methed up. You know what I mean? And therefore, he was speeding. That method is speed, but it's ultra speed. It's speed, super speed. And he could have been very agitated and in the middle of this, maybe a simple drug deal. Somebody pissed him off, and he got mad. It could be that simple. So it's and the Occam's razor thing. It's more likely it was that simple than this was a huge cartel thing, and there were these drops, and the governor wasn't. Everybody in the town was involved in the crime and the cover up, and all the way up to Bill Clinton. It's like, yeah. What do the families think? We don't hear anything from his family. It's all from the mother. That's where she has now passed away fairly recently, I think. She did work her little butt off to try to find out what happened to her son. And she was like, hey, it could have been he went to buy drugs. I didn't think he did that, but she didn't know everything about her son, I don't think. And of course, your mom, so you're always going to be more, hey, my son's not like that type thing. He did seem supposedly like a pretty decent fella. She knows there's corruption in town. She proved that. I mean, there's no question that, what she uncovered was unbelievable. I mean, that's the interesting part of the story is how they had a medical examiner say they smoked 20 joints and they purposely went to sleep on the tracks. And she fought to get the new medical examiner and get the grand jury, which she got, and that was she got it changed from accidental death to probable homicide, which I'm telling you, I've seen so many families try to get a grand jury to change the manner of death, and they don't succeed. She managed to do it, and I'm amazed. I give her a lot of credit. She just really worked hard, and then she found out that the prosecutor was a crook, and she didn't trust the police chief at that time. She pretty much thought there was a lot of collusion and a lot of cover-up, but she just doesn't know why. And so I don't know how much she believed this was cartel related or just drug related. I don't really know. She just wanted to know the truth. She wanted to know who killed her sons and who if anybody covered it up. She wanted to know who did that. Rather than incompetence. I say there's probably a lot of incompetence. She probably leans toward cover up because most parents do. But she never got her answers. She never did. And that's pretty much of a shame. Because, oh, no kidding. I forgot what happened to that idiot. Oh, he should see a medical examiner himself. Yes. Jesus, I tell you. Oh, just had to be local because they would have to know that a train would be coming through before sunrise. That's excellent, Tim. Absolutely. Because yeah, you trains are kind of inconsistent in a lot of places. Like you don't even know when the trains go by. I mean, some are like hourly, but then there's some that just weird patches of time. Yeah. So you're right. Chances are they were very local. I mean, yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a good point. And that is also very true, Lisa. When you treat people well, they treat you well for the most part. I should, So yes, yes, I think it is very much a local person. I don't think it's anybody from out of town. I don't think it's somebody like. I mean, even if they did a drug drop, the people there collecting it would probably be local. They would have a local connection for them to get it. But I just don't see any evidence that there was any drug drops in that town like that. Now, were drugs transported to the town? Yes, obviously, because people were doing drugs. And there was, I mean, there was drug trafficking. So yeah, so for sure. But that there was a big, huge hub for distribution because it had to be a hub for distribution. In other words, they dropped there, and then all the then trucks and stuff would have to take it away from that area. I just don't see any evidence of it. I mean, maybe somebody will find it. That I didn't see the information on that. I just saw a lot of, kind of fascinating conjecture and all kinds of interesting stories. They're interesting. If you can wade through them. I mean, I can't, but you might like to wade through some of the book and find all the different details, or one of the documentaries. It could be very interesting for you if you're interested in that kind of thing. So, but well, that's true. We'll probably never know. Yeah, we'll never know, Clarissa. You're right, and that's the way it goes. So, so I'm so late. Well, yeah, I'm about to say bye. A little late, like almost 2 hours late. Yes. So anyway, I'm going to stop there because there's no place else to go. A real shame. I mean, even if the teenager boys made a stupid choice that night, as I've always said, most of us will say, "Wow, I don't know how come I'm not dead because I made a lot of stupid choices when I was young, and it was amazing I survived them." So, yeah. No, there's no evidence anybody else was dead. No. I mean, could he have shot at someone and pissed them off? Sure. Could he have pointed the gun at them and pissed them off? Sure. But I don't know anything. Knowing also the gun, I don't know what was in the gun. I think that's the other thing we don't know. I didn't see any information on it. Now, mind you, again, I'm doing a short YouTube. And I could miss information because I simply don't have time to gather up. I'm not a wealthy YouTuber. I'm a smaller YouTuber, and these shows don't make big bucks, let me tell you. So if I were some of the other shows that you saw up there and you're getting 1 million viewers, then I could get a team of editors and I could have people feeding me stuff and doing all kinds of cool stuff. I could even have, I could even be able to read stuff that comes, I could have a whole outline and read it and have and then I could edit it so I look smart and didn't make any mistakes, didn't get the wrong pictures and stuff. I could do all that, but I do not have 2 million subscribers. I don't get hundreds of thousands of views on every video. So therefore, I might miss something somewhere, but I didn't see any information about that the gun was fired or whatever. And even if the gun was fired, how do we know it didn't fire it at a deer? That's what they were supposed to be out there doing. So see, I don't know. Did they look for a dead deer to see if they shot a deer? Again, I don't know. I don't know anything about all of that stuff. That I don't even know if they did a proper investigation, which I believe the parents did not think they did. Maybe because they just thought they were, in the beginning, they just got themselves killed because they smoked weed and got hit by a train, and then later, oh, maybe they're just buying some drugs and they're idiots, and so who knows? Maybe they just didn't take it seriously enough. Maybe because they're just crappy police people, because I mean, again, when you're in a small town, you got a smaller choice of who you hire onto the police force. And so, you can only get, if you remember back, Andy of Mayberry, Barney, I mean, he was an idiot. Andy couldn't find any people to work, So, and then we have the opposite problem in a whole nother problem right now, like in Prince George's County, where I'm at, where my daughter is a detective. They're like 200, 300 people down. They need about 200, 300 more officers. They can't get new officers these days because of all the hatred toward police by the public. People don't want to join the police now because who wants to join become a police officer, and people are going to be nasty to you and trash you and also claim you did things you didn't do, so you might end up in prison. It's terrifying. So a lot of people are like, I'm not joining the police force. And so they can't get new officers. So when they do have to get somebody and somebody applies, it's like, are you a total psychopath? Oh, you're saying no? Okay, we'll hire you. So you may get the quality of police officers is going to go down because the applicants are shrinking. The number of applicants are shrinking. So you get less choice. You take what you can get. And so, yeah, you may not get the best, police officers. Small town, same problem. So you can get great police officers, great detectives, in every town and every city, but sometimes it's a crapshoot. So, you thought Barney and Gomer did a good job? You get what you pay for, and sometimes that is true. And so, and I've been to large police departments where I've seen issues, and I've been to small sheriff's departments and I've seen issues. So I've seen it in both bigger departments and smaller departments, country and city, So people are people, and sometimes you get really smart and dedicated people, and sometimes you just get like even a detective might say, if he could, he'd say, yeah, that other detective I work with. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that kind of thing. They know they're working with an idiot. They're not thrills. Crystal, interesting question. Pat, does your daughter ever discuss cases with you to get your advice? Absolutely never. Basically, she should not be discussing cases with me, period, because that is that would be a violation of the police department. I mean, she shouldn't be sharing information on a case with an outside person, unless the police department is willing to have me come in as a criminal profiler. At one time, there was a case, and one of her detective friends wanted to bring me in, and then it went up to the higher ups, and they're like, but no. So we've never discussed any cases and that's the way it should be. So, so she leaves her work at the office, and I leave my work at the office, and we're mother and daughter, and we do fun things, and we take care of my granddaughter, and we're not detectives and profilers in the home. So, so that's the answer to that. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. It was an interesting case, although I was like, what is all this information? It was so overwhelming. It was crazy. But do check out some of those other things if you're interested in going down the route to see if there is more than I'm suspecting there is. So, yeah. So anyway, thank you for being here. Again, if you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing to save the channel from disappearing. Do join Patreon if you'd like to be in the chat room with these nice people. And for those that are in the chat room, yeah, the depending on what I'm doing, the hangout this week will be either Wednesday or Thursday. I just don't know which day yet. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. You were just not. Mom, just tell me who did it. Well, the one story I'll tell you, because I've told it before, but the funny part is that I homeschooled all my children all the way through. And I had this idea that when I had two boys and I had this little girl, and I'm like, and my little girl, she's going to be so sweet, and she's going to grow up. I mean, she liked sign language. And she's going to maybe become an interpreter or teacher of deaf children. Oh, that'll be so sweet. And she grew up to be a police officer, then a detective, and she's worked homicide. So I'm like, what happened to you? What went wrong? She goes, Mom, you used to leave homicide pictures on the desk in the library. I'm like, oh, oops, my fault. My fault. I don't remember doing that. I don't even know if that's true, but at least she blames me for her ending up in law enforcement. But anyway, thank you guys for being here. It was nice to see you all, and I will see you during the week. Bye.